I fix these every day. If you want to learn how to do it yourself and save some money, hit like and subscribe. This is an Electrolux front load dryer. It had a bad blower wheel, and so we're going to show you the complete disassembly and repair on this. Now these Electrolux front load dryers do have a few different aspects of taking them apart compared to other front load dryers. Now to disassemble, you need to take off this top panel, what you see I'm taking off here. There are 2 screws in the back, and they allow you, once you have removed those, to slide the panel away from the front and then pick up, and that will let it release, and then you'll be able to take that off. You've got a few screws underneath the bottom here. So if your dryer is on top of a washer, you'll have to prop it up a little bit to get to those, which is what you see that I'm doing here. And then just like all other front load dryers, you'll have some screws up top above that user interface. Undo those. Undo these 2 screws on the front face of it inside of the door. And then it's going to completely release except for the wiring connection points. So hold that door firmly so that after you've removed the screws, it doesn't pull against those wire harnesses. So you have one down there and one up at the interface back behind that board. Release both of those, and then your door is completely free and you can remove it. Now, the rest of this is fairly similar to other front load dryers. You've got some screws on the side of the inside metal frame there. You'll undo those, but then you also need to undo the plastic connection points that hold the wires into their positions. The way you get to most of those is going to be on the back side of that panel, and what we have found works the best is some needle nose pliers, and you're going to go back behind it and pinch that plastic insert. That will allow it to slide back through to the front. You'll see how that looks because a couple of them on the top are actually reversed, and so you pinch it on the outside, and so you'll see that coming up here. But these down below and a few more up top, you have to get behind it to do it. And then up top here, you'll see there's a couple that you get to from the front face, and so if you look at those, you'll be able to see how you're supposed to get to it from behind. So after you've released those, you want to be gentle, push the frame on the outside a little bit out, and then you can pull this metal housing off. Now this is our blower wheel. You've got a few screws holding that in. Take those out, and you can see the stress fractures here. So this blower wheel was not able to spin at the correct speed, and it was making a bad sound. That's how the customer picked up on it. It will also increase dry times if it's not blowing air as fast. So those may be some of the symptoms. So you may have to break it and crack it some if this has happened. We spent a little bit of time doing that, but then we got it off. What you're going to want to do is undo these 3 screws at this point. That lets you pull out this outer housing, the whole metal assembly. After these screws are undone, you just have one harness behind this that connects the wires. So that's what I'm doing here, undoing that. Once you undo that harness, you can just kind of wiggle this out. Now you may not have to take this out if your blower wheel came out in its entirety, but the metal screw that goes onto it was still fastened onto the motor shaft of the motor. So we're taking out the drum so that we can get the right leverage with a couple of channel locks to undo that metal screw. So after you undo the belt, you'll want to look at your blower wheel to see which direction it turns to get off. And so there's an arrow on those blower wheels that will show you how to loosen. So now we just force off that nut that went onto the blower wheel. This is the part that had broken free after those stress fractures. So the new one should be nice and tight on that new blower wheel. So before you put on the new blower wheel, make sure you put on this metal housing again. You can see the plastic wire harness clip there. Get all this back in place before you put on that blower wheel. Otherwise, you'll have to take the blower wheel back off to get it inside of this metal housing. So it's just a pressure fit. You just line it up, and then that felt seal will just add some pressure. You just wiggle it back into that 4-inch tube there, the exhaust tube. Once you get that lined up, go ahead and put in your screws. And then after you put in the screws, you're going to want to get that blower wheel. And again, look at the direction of the arrow, because this is reverse threaded. The reason they do that is so that when it spins, it tends to tighten and not loosen. So we're going to put this on and spin it here, and you can see I'm turning it to the left to tighten it here. And it spins quite a bit before it's on all the way. But once you get that, you can go behind it with some channel locks. And then it doesn't have to be super, super tight, because it will tighten naturally, but you want to get it nice and snug. And there we go. So now we're just going to reverse the entire process that we just did to get access to everything. So we're going to put on this little outer cover here. And if you're just patient and methodical, you can pause this video, go back and look at things. You can do this. It's just a little bit different than some of the other front load dryers. Now this part is important. Make sure you get that wire harness out of the way and in the correct spot so that you can get the drum back in. So we're just going to drape this so that that drum is not going to catch and pull that wire. So you kind of have to force the outside of this sheet metal frame so that you can get that drum in there. You just kind of force it out a little bit. And then make sure you get that drum seated on those back rollers. After that, you want to get the belt and put it back on. Now this belt does not have a lot of tolerance. You're going to need to get it lined up in the correct position. Otherwise, you won't be able to get the belt around the pulley and onto the drive shaft. So make sure if it's not going on and you're pulling that pulley and you're just not getting enough of the belt slack to get onto that pulley or onto the drive shaft, rework that belt and just make sure that it's in the exact spot it needs to be. And one way to do that is just look at the mark where the belt was on the drum before, and then just put it on that, because there will be kind of like a little black track where that belt was on before, and that's the position you need it. So after you get that belt back onto the pulley, you'll put the outer frame back on here. This can be a little bit tricky because you have to get it back behind that panel. There's a part of this that goes behind that sheet metal frame. So you have to get the wheels. I'm turning this. That helps get those rollers, those wheels in the correct spot. And then after you do that, you're gonna work on getting these ends inside of that sheet metal frame. So just be patient, you'll be able to do it, but know those are kind of the points of contact where you're working around. So after you get those wheels in the right spot, you can see we're just kind of encouraging this frame a little bit so that we can get this back on the other side. So don't do it too hard, but you can bend it just a little bit. Now on these little tabs, it's only the top ones that go into the slots. The bottom little tab there doesn't really, they're just held in by the screws. So after you get that on, put your screws back in. And then this is important, make sure you get that wire assembly back in the same position that it was before. When you have it in the correct position, you just push those plastic tabs back into the correct holes there. You'll see right down at the bottom here, and then you can push them back in each corresponding hole. Now, don't rush this process. Be methodical because you don't want to end up with missing screws. You don't want to end up with something not mounted correctly. So the key on this is just to be patient, put it back together the exact way you took it apart. Using a camera and filming it can be helpful. Use this film, go back and see where those connection points are. After you get that inside housing on, you're going to put the door back on. Now, somehow I lost the footage, but make sure that you put those wire harnesses back together. The two, there's one at the bottom right, and then there's one that goes to the control panel back behind. So get those together and then put these two screws back where you open the door, and then that will hold it all in place and you'll be able to get all the other screws back in. So if you need to lift up on it, just put a screwdriver or something underneath it, and that'll give you access to screwing the screws underneath. If you can slide it out far enough, you don't need to prop it up. So this time I have it far enough out that I don't have to prop it up. So now we're testing it. We're just making sure that everything sounds smooth and it's great. So we are good to go. The top, you just slide that back on, start with it a little bit out, and then you slide it forward into the control panel, and then go behind it and do those two screws on the back of it to keep it secure. And then you will have done everything to completely disassemble and reassemble this. Get it back into position, and now you've got a working dryer again. Congrats on a well done repair. Hey, thanks for watching. Your support means a lot. If this video helped, feel free to leave a tip and check the other links in the description.